Welcome to Chalice Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are a community of diverse beliefs and experiences, nurturing the liberal religious spirit and united by our desire to grow in love and in service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, you are welcome here. Whether you gather with us every Sunday, once or twice a year, or are with us this morning for the first time, we are glad you are here. I'm Reverend Sharon Wiley, Chalice's minister. Our worship musician this morning is our music director, Tim McKnight, and our song leader is Jennifer Sabion. Welcome to this online worship service. If you are new to online worship, let me orient you a little bit. Whether you have a microphone on your computer or not, whether you have a camera on your computer or not, you cannot unmute yourself and cannot make yourself visible during our time together. So you don't need to worry that anyone can hear what you're saying or see what you're doing wherever you are. We hope you're comfortable with some caffeine, possibly still in your pajamas. That's great. If you get a notice that pops up during the service that says internet unstable, that means that your internet is unstable. If that happens, you might want to turn off other devices that are using Wi-Fi in your home, and that can help stabilize your connection. If my internet becomes unstable or if Zoom crashes, those are the things that could disrupt our worship. And those haven't happened yet, but if they do, just try to relax. That's just how it is. Hang in there and we'll see if we can get back on track. If you, for any reason, were to get kicked out of this meeting, just try and come back in. So again, if that were happening, that means something unusual is happening, and sometimes we just have to sit that out. Yeah, so this is me standing at the door of our little chapel saying hello, good morning. Since I can't hug you myself, please go ahead and give yourself a hug. And if you have someone else in your living space, give them a hug too. Do you remember? Yeah, it's good to be together this morning. So on your menu at the bottom, for most of us, in the bottom of your screen is a button that says chat. Chat is where we talk to each other during the service. Many of you are using it to say hello, which is great. I am going to put in the chat a link to our online connection card. There it is. If you are new to the congregation and would like to receive our email announcements, you can fill out our online connection card in order to get onto our email list. Also, if you're a regular attendee at Chalice, if you have a question or any change of contact information, you can also use that link just as you would a connection card in person. So I'm also going to put into the chat my email address. There we go. If you would like to submit a prayer request to me or have any confidential information that you would like me to know, these are things you can email me and I'll read them privately after the service. So some of us love to use the chat and use it throughout the service, which is great, and you're welcome to do that. Some congregants don't like the chat and find it distracting. If you don't like having the chat box open, please know that you can close it. Just click on the chat button like you did to open it. Clicking on it again closes it. And if you're, so that's all you need to do to make that go away. If you do post in the chat, pay attention to that little blue menu at the top of your little box where you type. You want to make sure that you select that you're sending to all panelists and attendees. I'm the only panelist, so if you send to panelists, I'm the only one who could see it, but I might not see it during the service because I'm doing other things. So we want to message each other during the chat, so use that all panelists and attendees, so we can everyone can read the posts. So you're going to be invited to take a breath together. pause for applause for Tim, just like when we're in person in the chapel. Our service today is a reflection on some of the ancestors of our faith tradition who helped shape Unitarian Universalism into what it is today. The words of our call to worship come from the Reverend Karen Johnston. Ancestors who spoke with bravest fire, lend us your senses, that we may know another world is on her way, breathed into life with our participation in her creation. Forebears who led the way where there was at first no way. Lend us your persistence, your temerity, your assurance that the moral arc of the universe does indeed bend towards justice. Ones who went before us, sacrificing for a future not your own. Help us to give of ourselves, that the common stones in our hands today might be cathedrals of compassion tomorrow, halls of restorative justice, sheltering walls of beloved community after that. It is Sunday morning, the day we gather. Let us be thankful and full of praise to be in the company of those who came before, yet are ever in our midst. Let us worship together.
Keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. I'm gonna keep my heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open. Though these waves wanna push, though they want me around, though the waves wanna push me around, I'm gonna keep my heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open till my faith brings me back to solid ground. Until my faith brings me back to solid ground. We gotta keep our heart. We gotta keep wide open. We gotta keep our hearts wide open. Though these waves wanna push us around, though these waves wanna push us around, we gotta keep our heart. We gotta keep wide open till our faith brings us back to solid ground. Till our faith brings us back to solid ground. Say hi.
Hi.
If you have a joy you would like to share with the community this morning, now is the time to share in the chat box. These won't be spoken out loud, but please feel free to respond to each other in the chat. This is the time for joys. We will share sorrows a bit later on. We'll listen to some piano music, and if you have a candle in your own home that you would like to light for joy this morning, now is the time. May our joys be multiplied. May we act to extend our warmth to all who are rejoicing in the wider world.
Click Clack Moo, Cows That Type by Doreen Cronin and illustrated by Betsy Lewin. Farmer Brown has a problem. His cows like to type. All day long he hears click clack, moo, click clack, moo, clickety clack, moo. At first he couldn't believe his ears. Cows that type? Impossible! Click clack, moo, click clack, moo, clickety clack, moo. Then he couldn't believe his eyes. A note was nailed to the wall. Dear Farmer Brown, the barn is very cold at night. We'd like some electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. It was bad enough. The cows had found the old typewriter in the barn. Now they wanted electric blankets. No way, said Farmer Brown. No electric blankets. So the cows went on strike. They left a note on the barn door. Sorry, we're closed. No milk today. No milk today, cried Farmer Brown. In the background, he heard the cows busy at work. Click clack, moo, click clack, moo, clickety clack, moo. The next day he got another note. Dear Farmer Brown, the hens are cold too. They'd like electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. The cows were growing impatient with the farmer. They left a new note on the door. Closed. No milk, no eggs. No eggs, cried Farmer Brown. In the background, he heard them. Click clack, moo, click clack, moo, clickety clack, moo. Cows that type, hens on strike. Who ever heard of such a thing? How can I run a farm with no milk and no eggs? Farmer Brown was furious. Farmer Brown got out his own typewriter. Dear cows and hens, there will be no electric blankets. You are cows and hens. I demand milk and eggs. Sincerely, Farmer Brown. Duck was a neutral party, so he brought the ultimatum to the cows. The cows held an emergency meeting. All the animals gathered around the barn to snoop, but none of them could understand moo. All night long, Farmer Brown waited for an answer. Duck knocked on the door early the next morning. He handed Farmer Brown a note. Dear Farmer Brown, we will exchange our typewriter for electric blankets. Leave them outside the barn door, and we will send Duck over with the typewriter. Sincerely, the cows. Brown decided this was a good deal. He left the blankets next to the barn door and waited for Duck to come with the typewriter. The next morning, he got a note. Dear Farmer Brown, the pond is quite boring. We'd like a diving board. Sincerely, the ducks. Click, clack, quack. Click, clack, quack. Clickety, clack, quack.
Do I look there or look there? Okay.
Just like your yeah.
Okay. My name is Alexa Ann Watson, and I am the great great-great-great-granddaughter of
Frederick Douglass is my great-great-great-great.
I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of Frederick Douglass.
I am the great-great-great-great-grandchild.
I've been counting on my fingers since I was like 5.
Whenever you're ready, here we go.
This is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom.
Fellow citizens, I shall not presume to dwell at length on the associations that cluster about this day. The simple story of it is that 76 years ago, the people of this country were British subjects.
Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers were wise men, and if they did not go mad, they became restive under this treatment.
With brave men, there's always a remedy for oppression.
They succeeded, and today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained is yours, and you, therefore, may properly celebrate this anniversary.
Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence?
Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us?
I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary.
Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common.
The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me.
The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me.
This 4th of July is yours, not mine.
You may rejoice, I must mourn.
Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions.
At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed.
Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke.
For it is not light that is needed, but fire.
It is not the gentle shower, but thunder.
We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake.
The feeling of the nation must be quickened.
The conscience of the nation must be roused.
The propriety of the nation must be startled.
The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed.
And its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim.
To him, your celebration is a sham.
Your boasted liberty an unholy license.
Your national greatness, swelling vanity.
Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless.
Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence.
Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery.
Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings,
with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him
mere bombast,
fraud,
deception,
impiety,
and hypocrisy. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. Allow me to say in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country.
This speech was written almost 170 years ago, but this part of it is still extremely relevant, especially with today's protests.
I think that when people are oppressed, they feel silenced, and if someone feels silenced, they get angry. There are certain tactics that you need to use to get people to really hear your voice, and it's not always going to be just like a very calm discussion.
I think he's mostly talking to the people who are already on his side, but believe that they can still try to talk this out, or that things are still justifiable. I know a lot of people at the time were saying, and people now are still saying, that it's not as bad as it could be.
While the 4th of July probably does not feel the same to me as it does to others, I wouldn't say that it has no meaning, because it is the time when America as a country became free from another country. But I would say that it's not the time in which I gained my freedom.
He had a lot of hope, especially for his age. And like, I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm only 20 years old, but I'm exhausted. Like, I have these thoughts like, will we ever really get to this point? Or is this really something that we should actually spend our time fighting for?
Somebody once said that pessimism is a tool of white oppression, and I think that's true. I think in many ways we are still slaves to the notion that it will never get better. But I think that there is hope, and I think it's important that we celebrate Black joy and Black life, and we remember that change is possible, change is probable, and that there's hope.
There was a time when any one of us watching this service could have been sentenced to death for holding the beliefs we do today. If you believe that Jesus was a man, not God, if you believe that there is no God, or you're not sure if there's a God, if you believe there might be many gods, if you believe that the Bible is not the Word of God, any one of these ideas is considered a heresy. And at various times in history, having these beliefs was a crime punishable by death. Ours is a history of heresies, beliefs out of step with the norm, and I call on us today to remember our heretical ancestors and their legacy of fighting for religious freedom. The word heresy is defined as an opinion or doctrine at variance with the orthodox or accepted doctrine, especially of a church or religious system. In religious contexts, what is heresy has historically been defined by the Roman Catholic Church. The word Unitarian refers to the belief that God is one, not the Trinitarian idea of a Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So Unitarianism is a heresy as defined by the Roman Catholic Church. The word universalism refers to the belief that there is no hell and that all humanity is saved. So universalism is also a heresy as defined by the Roman Catholic Church. Of course, Unitarian Universalism has grown to mean more than these ideas about one God and salvation for all. But I think if the Roman Catholic Church looked very closely at us now, there'd be a longer list of heresies for us than just two. So what I always want you to know and remember is that the word heresy comes from a Greek word meaning to choose. We choose for ourselves. That's our heresy. Although there were some questions about the divinity of Jesus during the early formation of the Catholic Church, the accepted church doctrine came to be that Jesus was part of the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and that he was fully human and fully divine. This was church doctrine for centuries, and church doctrine was the law of the land. Church and state were united, and crimes against the church were punishable by civic authorities. But then Gutenberg began printing the Bible in 1455, and people began to read it. Before this, people had always been told by the church what the Bible said. They'd been told by the church what to believe. But now, those who could read had access to their own copies and could read it for themselves. I've compared the internet, the birth of the internet, as a modern day invention of the printing press in terms of its impact on our world. So not only that, but with the invention of the printing press, people could also quickly publish and distribute new ideas. This changed everything. So what we now call the Protestant Reformation began in 1517, when Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to a church door in Germany. Protestant ideas began to spread, and it's important for the rest of our story to remember that Protestants did not see themselves as starting a new religion. They wanted to reform the Catholic Church. They saw themselves as purists, wanting to return to a true form of Christianity, and they were just as concerned with orthodoxy as the Catholic Church was. We continue to see debates about what is true Christianity all these hundreds of years later. So our stage is set for our first real theological ancestor, a man with serious questions about the teaching of the church. Michael Servetus was a Spanish lawyer, physician, and theologian, a man who liked to argue. In 3 different publications, he argued that the Trinity has no biblical basis, meaning that if you read the Bible, there's no evidence for an understanding of a Trinitarian God. In 1531, he published On the Errors of the Trinity. In 1532, he published dialogues on the Trinity and on the justice of Christ's reign. All 3 of these publications argued against the church's doctrine of a Trinitarian God. Servetus applied reason to his theology, just as you and I would today. These writings were condemned by both the Catholic Church and the Protestant reformers. Nobody liked it. And Servetus went underground to avoid persecution. He left Spain, he changed his name, studied medicine, and worked as a physician for the next 14 years. But like many of us who think we're right about something, Servetus couldn't let the argument go. In 1547, he initiated a correspondence with French theologian John Calvin, one of the leading Protestant reformers and one of the most powerful men of the time. Calvin strongly disagreed with Servetus's opinions on the Trinity and tried to correct his beliefs. Servetus was not persuaded and instead continued to try and convince Calvin of the error of his beliefs. When Calvin sent Servetus a copy of Calvin's book, Institutes of the Christian Religion, Servetus sent it back with his own criticisms written in the margin of the book. Calvin was not amused and cut off correspondence with Servetus. So, although we cannot know for sure, it seems to me that Servetus enjoyed the rigorous intellectual debate of this correspondence, never understanding that Calvin did not. To John Calvin, matters of the Trinity and church doctrine were not matters open for debate. They were matters of life and death. In 1553, Servetus was captured by the French Inquisition. He escaped. He went to Geneva, and he went to Calvin's church, presumably to try once again to convince Calvin that Servetus was right in his understanding of the nature of God. Calvin promptly had him arrested. Servetus was tried for heresy and convicted. On October 27th, 1553, Michael Servetus was burnt at the stake along with his books. His dying words were, "O Jesus, Son of the eternal God, have pity on me." If his dying words had been to Jesus, eternal Son of God, he would have been in conformance with church doctrine. To his dying breath, he remained defiant. I'm smiling because even though this is a disturbing history, I feel such an affinity for his stubbornness. My husband Peter calls this part of our history the history of bullheadedness. If you knew you were going to be put to death, and all you had to do was live was say that you believe that Jesus is God, would you say it? Would you be willing to die for your Unitarian Universalist beliefs? They're just words, after all. History, particularly the time period we're talking about, history is filled with people who converted, who recanted, who hid, who said what they needed to say to stay alive. For those of us with families, I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's absolutely significant that Servetus was not married and had no children. He was free from responsibilities to others. So all of that makes sense to me. And when I think I'm right about something that's really important to me, it is hard for me to let it go. I really understand Servetus continuing to hound Calvin. I think he really respected Calvin and just kept thinking he could convince him if they could just talk more. Servetus thought he could convince Calvin. Servetus clearly wasn't a people person, clearly didn't see that Calvin was very angry. And I think that Servetus just couldn't bring himself to say he believed something that he didn't. Many of us who were not raised Unitarian Universalist have had moments in our lives when we could no longer bring ourselves to say we believe something that we don't. For many of us, this was not an easy thing, and we live with rifts in our families, conversation topics that must be avoided, perhaps even people we love but don't see anymore. If we could bring ourselves to say we believe something that we don't, we wouldn't be Unitarian Universalists. So this is the time in our service when you are reminded that Chalice is a robust community of people with diverse gifts and talents. It is through our communal sharing of gifts and talents that our community even exists. And so here is an update on our annual pledge drive.
Greetings, Chalice. Congratulations to you all for supporting our successful annual pledge drive.
We emailed you in late April to share that Chalice was facing a challenge this year, both financially and otherwise.
We asked that you step up and dig deep, and you came through beyond expectations.
When the congregation succeeds like this, it's not because any one person saves the day. It's because we all did it together.
So we all need to thank each other for being supportive when help was needed.
Thank you, Chalice.
Thank you, Chalice.
Thank you all,
Chalice.
Thank you, Chalice.
Thank you,
Chalice.
Chalice.
Thank you, Chalice.
Thank you, Chalice.
Chalice.
Thank you, Chalice.
Chalice.
Thank you, Chalice.
Thank you, Chalice.
Thank you, Chalice.
Thank you, Chalice. Thank you, Chalice. Thank you, Chalice.
If you haven't made yet your pledge commitment for the coming year, you can still do so. We'll be sending out an email tomorrow, sharing the video again, thanking all of you who have made your pledge commitments, and reminding you how to make your pledge commitment if you haven't. So we shared our joys earlier in the service, and now it's time for our sorrows. If you have a sorrow you would like to share with the community this morning, now is the time to share in the chat box. These won't be shared out loud, but please feel free to respond to each other in the chat. This is the time for sorrows. If you have a candle in your home that you would like to light for sorrow, this is the time, and we'll listen to some piano music while we share. our sorrows be lessened. May our burdens be lightened. In sorrow and challenge, may we know ourselves always held and never alone. May we act to extend our warmth to all who are hurting in our wider world. The Sunday offering is an expression of the generosity that makes our congregational life possible. As Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg writes, generosity is characterized by the inner quality of letting go or relinquishing, being able to let go, to give up, to renounce, to give generously. These capacities spring from the same source within us. When we practice generosity, we open to all of these liberating qualities simultaneously. Please text your donation to Chalice. If you haven't texted a donation before, please know that once you text the amount, you'll get a reply with a link to follow, to enter your credit card information. If you have already entered this information previously when you've donated, then you don't need to enter it again after that. And if your Sunday donation is part of your pledge payment, please be sure to indicate pledge after the dollar amount. Also, please know you can make a text donation anytime. It doesn't need to be during the worship service. So the phone number will be on screen in a moment, and I'll also put it in the chat box. Please give generously. Please join in dedicating our offering with words of affirmation. As Unitarian Universalists, we aspire to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands.
The most pious of men, don't often take my knee to pray. That doesn't mean I'm here to use up space, not here to simply grind away. People might might wonder how I choose my way without some higher guiding light. There's this compass deep inside of me, and I know what's right. I know what's right. So while I'm here, gonna try to do my part. While I'm here, gonna be the best of friends. While I'm here, gonna try to have an open heart and work to ease the hunger and the fear. Now while I'm here, divide us by what we believe. You can say I'm right and I know you're wrong. But take a look back through our history. I think you find that before long, those who divide us, they are never held in the highest of esteem. We look to those who want to break down the walls. I have a dream. I have a dream that while I'm here, gonna be a force for good. While I'm here, gonna turn the other cheek. While I'm here, gonna work it in the neighborhood and try to spread a love that is sincere. While I'm here, life 1,000 times, and this may be a one-way ticket round. I firmly believe that I don't know. I never let that get me down. Not trying to answer to someone else doesn't mean you don't have to make the grade. When I close my eyes that one last time, I want to smile for the difference that I made. So while I'm here, gonna try to do my part. While I'm here, gonna be the best of friends. While I'm here, gonna try to have an open heart and work to ease the hunger and the fear. While I'm here, gonna be a force for good. While I'm here, gonna turn the other cheek. While I'm here, gonna work it in the neighborhood and try to spread a love that is sincere. While I'm here, while I'm here, while I'm here.
In 1539, Catherine Weigel, 80 years old, confessed her faith in God, but refused to say that she believed in Christ as his son. She was burnt at the stake in Krakow. In 1566, Giovanni Valentino Gentile published an attack on the doctrine of the Trinity entitled Antidota. He was beheaded in Bern. In 1568, Francis David influenced the proclamation of the Edict of Torda, a declaration of religious tolerance in Transylvania. When Transylvania subsequently fell under Roman Catholic authority, David was sentenced to prison, where he died in 1579. In 1611, in Warsaw, Iwan Tyszkiewicz refused to take an oath in the name of the Trinity and refused to take his oath on a crucifix. His tongue was cut out for his blasphemy. He was beheaded for his rebellion, One hand and one foot were cut off because he had thrown the crucifix to the ground, and then his body was burnt for his heresy. In 1662, after 15 years spent in and out of prison for his heretical writings, John Biddle was arrested while holding a worship service in a private residence in England. He was once again sent to prison, became ill, and died there. He is known now as the father of English Unitarianism. In 1941, the founder of the Unitarian Church in Czechoslovakia, Norbert Čapek, was arrested by Nazis on charges of treason. He was tortured and executed a year later at the Dachau concentration camp in Germany. Would you be willing to die for your Unitarian Universalist beliefs? Yesterday, we celebrated the signing of the Declaration of Independence, a document primarily authored by Unitarian Thomas Jefferson. I find the most famous sentence of the Declaration to be a powerful summation of what we now call our Unitarian Universalist principles. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Wouldn't Michael Servetus have enjoyed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Our religious ancestors died for the religious freedoms that we enjoy today. We are here in their spirit. Life and liberty is ours to enjoy. Happy 4th of July. Please join in singing.
Sets our
May you go forward knowing that life is fragile and a gift, that you are lovable and loved, and you are not alone. Love and blessings to each of you. You are invited to close our time together by singing the well, and we'll put our link to our coffee hour into the chat. We hope you'll join us.